I've done this play this is probably the third time, and each time I go back to it, I find that what I thought about it before is completely different to what I think about it now. It's kind of a really bizarre thing, because that doesn't happen with a lot of plays, like contemporary plays. The characters for me, like Macbeth, all the discussion that's happening in the rehearsal at the moment, for me is kind of freshening up the ideas that I had about Macbeth and the other characters as well. And I think that's really the wonderful thing about Shakespeare, is that you do come back to it and things change because other people have different opinions, or that they highlight something that you didn't even think about. And so I think that's one of the wonderful things about a play like this, is that you might come back to it over and over again. I'm sure there's actors that we're working with that have been in the play 3 or 4 times, and yet it's still kind of fresh, and it seems really fresh.
Yeah, what have I learned this time about Macbeth so far? Something new. I every time I do it, and I think I'm like Ivan, I've probably done it, this is my 3rd time, maybe 4th. But it's always scarier than I remember. Every time I come back to it, maybe it's because my understanding of Shakespeare gets a little bit more richer or whatever, but every time I get an opportunity to come back, it's scarier than the last time. And this time in particular takes the cake, just in terms of what they're capable of, what they do to each other, how their actions haunt them, how sad it is, like how incredibly, desperately sad it is that these characters inevitably have to face the consequences of their actions and where that leaves them. That just becomes clearer to me time and time again when I do it, just how vast and tragic that is.
Paul is always a joy to have around. He's good company. He's always smiling. Look at his smile.
Look at that.
It's delicious. But yeah, no, that's what happens. Working last year with a lot of people, with the same people for an extended period of time, you kind of do build a sort of a working relationship, which is really easy just to throw yourself into something new. Yeah, which is really great.
Yeah. It's really great to have someone from the players who you work so closely with. You bring all that in, and you're right. We don't share much.
No.
Scene time. We're on stage quite a bit together, but we're not really sharing dialogue. But I know he's there. It's good. Yeah. Last 10 days.
Agony.
Agony, yeah. Very intense, especially physically.
Physically, yeah. The play is a gem to work with, but the physical training we're going through at the moment, the Meyerhold training with Nigel Holton, is just phenomenal.
Nigel wants to, and Peter wants to shape the show with this Meyerhold. It's an aesthetic, but it's a training philosophy, I guess, that's been around for ages.
Yeah. It's a continuation of their work that they did in Julius Caesar. So,
yeah.
Having seen that show, we were lucky last year, being part of the players, that we were able to sit in on a rehearsal of Julius Caesar, and we saw sort of the bones of that work coming together. They showed us the assassination of Julius Caesar, and that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was so physical and so stylized, which was really interesting.
And that was a great reference point, wasn't it? That we could see what this work, the Meyerhold work, could achieve before we get thrown into a serious boot camp.
That's right.
But we've got a strong idea in our mind what can be done with this work. Yeah, the sword work. I love having my preconceived ideas of what long swords were blown out of the water doing this work. Like I worked with Nigel a few years back doing Hamlet, and we did rapiers and sabres, which is very eloquent and flashy and smooth and flowy, but then so is this. I expected long swords to be brutish and you swing just to chop whatever's in the way, and that it wouldn't necessarily have a form that was complex or beautiful, but I couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually very elegant and precise and made by Germans, so it's efficient as, and very old, like 600 years old.
Yeah, so the 13th century.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. The sword fighting is a joy. I mean, we come in on at about 9 o'clock in the morning every morning. Like rehearsals start at 10, but we come in at 9 to do sword play for about 45 minutes, and that kind of is wonderful because I've never done a martial art, but it provides you with such a structure, and the forms that we do and the exercises that we do are so great that for the rest of the day I feel warmed up, I feel ready to go, I feel like my brain's switched on. it's not intensive, like physically. It's not as tough as the my hold training, but what it is, it's so beautiful. Like the work with the sword is so beautiful that it's magical and it's quite stylized, which I think is going to fit really well with this play.
Oh, you know, I do call it the Scottish play, but I think it's just out of respect for those who do fear it. I love the idea of superstitions. I love horror novels. I think I'm into that, but I don't. I think if a light's going to fall on my head, it's not because of the play. It's because there's a loose bulb. I don't.
Bad
really,
techies.
Yeah, bad techies. Yeah, I don't. I mean, you know, it's one of the exciting things about the play, but no, I don't. I don't treat it that way religiously.
I don't know how you can be superstitious if you're a theatre person or an actor or a performer, because invariably something's going to go wrong because it's live. Something is always going to go wrong, and you know, if you're superstitious about that, I mean, how do you get on stage every time? I mean, I can't imagine that. But I think what's really lovely is that what this play can do, instead of tapping into what's superstitious, is tapping into what's unknown. You know, we're all kind of superstitious in a certain way, and so tapping into that, not necessarily something like, you know, I have to jump over a broomstick 3 times or something like that. But yeah, it taps into something that is within all of us, and we have to deal with, and it's creepy, it's sexy, it's
dark.